Brendan Rudnicki directs and co-writes Shadow of Bigfoot, a 2024 found footage Sasquatch movie. Let's discuss. So this focuses on three filmmakers. We've got a guy, a girl, and the girl's kind of younger brother, and he's effectively the cameraman. We don't see him much actually in front of the camera, a couple of times, but that's it. And they're there to try and document a kind of true crime case. And there was a woman that had died, and the husband kind of was initially kind of looked at, but there was no evidence, and he claimed it was a Bigfoot attack. And this guy who was accused is now just living in the woods as a hermit, and they want to go and interview him to try and get more information. Along the way, they meet a couple of other people who are out in the woods, and inevitably Bigfoot may well be there as well. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let me ask you, how do you like your found footage movies? Do you like them gritty, realistic, kind of rough around the edges? Or do you like them more slick, better produced, more legible maybe, a bit more kind of story pizzazz, but maybe less realistic? Well, if the answer is the second version, you might want to check this one out, because that's the kind of the found footage movie that this is. It's not a particularly kind of realistic movie. In actual fact, they try and address the fact by having a little bit of text at the beginning saying this footage has been edited and the sound improved and yada yada yada, to kind of obviously make it more legible. We'll come on to some details about that in a minute. But let me tell you what works in this movie's favour. I have to say, for a kind of, lost in the woods creature running around movie, it was pretty exciting. I kind of quite liked it. I mean, it's wisely they actually keep the Bigfoot creature only fleetingly seen. It kind of runs across, or he's kind of just up in your face. We don't really get a prolonged look. And I think that works both in the fact that this is obviously a lower budget found footage movie, but it also kind of plays into the Bigfoot mythos as it is, because there's only like blurry photographs and things and that kind of stuff. So I think that makes this almost fit quite well within that kind of context. It doesn't have a huge amount of primary characters, and as such, I think you get to know the characters fairly well, and arguably it's a little bit over dramatic at times, but I think the acting is relatively kind of solid. And as I've said, if you like a more polished found footage movie with less shaky cam, this movie, there's a decent, quality camera. It's near enough always in frame. There's not much kind of shaky cam flying around. There's musical swells that gonna get you in the kind of like try and build the tension and the scary bits and stuff like that. So at times, actually feels more of a traditionally film style movie rather than a found footage. And we're going to come on to that as well in a minute, because I thought it's depending what you want, there's a negative side to that. The other thing I would say that really worked in this movie's favour are some of the practical VFX. Now this is a double-edged sword. One thing that is on the positive side is the gore effects. I thought the gore effects were very, very well done. It avoids CGI blood and things like that. We've got practical prosthetic makeup and stuff, and it is a good realistic standard. There's some quite graphic wounds here that we see, and there are a couple of kind of peripheral characters that float around, so we do get to see a variety of people biting the dust, so to speak, or at least the aftermath of it. And there's some pretty graphic wounds on display here. It's not a long movie, so it's relatively kind of well paced, and I generally found it reasonably entertaining. So let's discuss the negative side of things. Okay, so let me just carry on where I left off with the VFX. The gore effects I think are good. What lets this movie down on the effects wise is the actual Bigfoot suit. It just looks like a guy in a gorilla suit, or at least a decent, reasonable gorilla suit. Now, like I said, we don't see much of it on camera, which is for the movie's benefit, but we do get a look. You know, you can kind of see folds in the fabric and things like this. It's not the best. It's surprising because there's such a vast difference between the gore effects, which are very, very well done, and the Bigfoot suit, which is, unfortunately, when we do have a proper look at it, not the best. Like I've said, you can kind of get away with it to a degree because the camera never really stays on it for too long. But when you do see it, it's not all that impressive, let me just say. It seems there's a random, like, amount of people just wandering around the woods. In actual fact, you'll be reminded of playing a game and you come across like an NPC character and they'll kind of turn around and kind of give you quest points. You need to go to this point, you know. It seems like that. It's just there's this random people in this kind of forest that these trio just kind of like bump into. Weird. Let's talk about that forest, because we're meant to believe that this is like in the middle of nowhere and it's very kind of remote. And there's a line in here. They've got to travel 12 miles into the forest to try and find this particular area. So we're thinking this is at least 12 miles into the thick of the forest. But if you have a look at the actual trails and the actual kind of the path that they are walking on, they are very, very well used paths. So it doesn't really look like it's that particularly kind of like remote, if you know what I mean. So we mainly have this kind of trio of people, but they very rarely address the character who's holding the camera, which is the younger brother. So you almost forget he's a character, and it almost seems, now I don't blame the actors for this. It almost seems like there's not another character there, because we have this couple very occasionally will kind of talk to the camera, but not much. Not in the case that is a realistic depiction. Now, when they're presenting and they're kind of like, oh, this is a documentary, yada, 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 you can get a guess, that's fine. But when they're just talking just normally and this guy's just filming, why wouldn't they be talking to the guy who's holding the camera? He is just as much part of that group as the other two. Doesn't really make sense. But the other thing is, and that goes just in hand with that, why is this guy filming all the time when they're not actually presenting? Now, clearly when there's Bigfoot around, he's going to want to capture it on film, so I'm not talking about then. But prior to that, there's no like way you can charge his batteries. He's running, you have a limited amount of batteries. Why would you just be filming like just random crap? You just wouldn't do it, if you'd be preserving your battery. Again, it's the conceits of found footage here that kind of the realistic side of this stuff starts to kind of like, but let me just carry on with that. So a couple of other things. There's sequences here where there's edits. So we have one guy talking and then there's like another guy, and then the camera just edits between the two of them. Now, if there was one guy holding the camera, you would see him like move the camera around, but there's quick edits with no disruption in the audio, which means there would have been multiple cameras, which doesn't make sense. And then just filming things. And we're meant to believe this guy is the younger brother of the female character. There's a scene, for example, where she steps into a bear trap and her leg's wounded, but he's there getting the wounding. He's not helping. He's just filming his sister kind of like with a leg in a bear trap, and literally just standing there filming it. And again, you just have to think of the sort of the realistic aspects of this. And when he's running, there's Bigfoot's chasing us. We're running away, but we're gonna still keep the camera, trained on the guy ahead, so he's in frame all the time. Again, it's that sort of like, this is not particularly kind of like believable kind of found footage. It's trying to have that hybrid feel to it, where it's found footage, but we want to have the advantages of found footage where we can't see the monsters very much and it's a little bit cheaper and stuff, and people look at the camera, but we also want to have the more of the dramatic elements that are associated with the more traditionally found style films and movies. So we have this hybrid that doesn't really work as a found footage movie, and it is not a traditionally found filmed movie. So, you know, there you go. And it's somewhat kind of predictable, ultimately. It's not exactly breaking the mould where it's has, you know, guys lost in the woods. Overall, it's a fine found footage movie. I think it's going to be one that you can watch and enjoy. You'll probably never watch it again, and you'll be forgotten about in a couple of days. So it's a 5 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to you next time.